This is a trashed 2022 YT Jeffsy Uncaged. One of the first bikes on the market to be sold with electronic suspension. Only 500 of these were sold, originally selling for almost $10,000. I was able to buy this bike for just $3,000, but when a deal sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So let's restore this bike to its former glory and see if there's any hidden problems, and then we can see what electronic suspension is all about. This is Sad to Rad. With this special edition Jeffsy Uncaged, I've been seeing these for sale for about $5,000 to $6,000. It's a 29-inch trail bike with 150, 140 millimeters travel, carbon frame, carbon wheels, the works. The previous owner seemed like he just wanted it off his hands. He had all the receipts and owner's manuals and everything, but he just has too many bikes. So he listed it for $3,000 for a quick sale. Plus, selling a used bike in this market, no matter what it is, for $6,000 is going to be next to impossible. Real quick, the electronic RockShox suspension called Flight Attendant works with this sensor in the cranks. When you pedal, it tells the front and rear shocks to lock out, but it's actually way more complex than that. If your bike tilts downhill, it knows to open up the shocks, and it even knows when you're jumping, but more on that later when we hit the trail. To start off this restoration, the frame wrap has got to go. It's faded, flaking off, and just looks like crap. But I really want to just take everything apart, even the linkage, to see if there's any hidden issues and maybe find out why I got this bike for so cheap. When I started removing this wrap, the vinyl came off with heat no problem, but it left this super thick layer of adhesive. I tried goof off, rubbing alcohol, heat, it would not come off. The only thing that worked was pushing it with my fingers and kind of rolling it off, but this took me over an hour and resulted in a blister on my thumb. What a disaster. Besides getting this frame super cleaned, I really wanted to check the linkage bearings to see if they were bad. There was a ton of bolts of various sizes, and I'm happy to report that I got it all back together without looking up a diagram or a how-to video. But the bearings were smooth, we are good to go. Well, I can definitely tell that this bike is pretty well used and good. I'm glad the last owner got some good use out of it. He looks like he sent it pretty hard, and I can tell that he went to Sedona because that orange dirt gets everywhere. But I noticed something wrong with this bike. When I got it, it had an XX1 Axis drivetrain with carbon cranks, but I stole that and put it on my XC bike. But when I did that, I installed some GX cranks and noticed that the bottom bracket wasn't quite right. The cranks spun fine, almost too fast, like there was no grease in the bearings. So earlier when I removed the bottom bracket, a bunch of water just dumped out, probably from the bike wash earlier. Inside the BB shell, it almost looks like rusted water has been allowed to sit there for a while. So I started looking at the frame, and there's this little hole right here, probably to drain out that water. So I used my little poker, and sure enough, it felt like it was clogged. Good thing this frame is carbon, or it would probably be all rusted out by now. I guess technically I could pull out the bearings and pack them with grease, but it just looks all mangled and even almost like rusty. Plus, a new SRAM bottom bracket is like 30 bucks, so let's get this thing installed. Feeling pretty optimistic about this YTN cage. It's cleaning up really nicely. And with me buying it at such a low price, I have plans on making money off this by reselling it, but more on that at the end of the video. At this point, I'm just committed to restoring it. I recently got another ultrasonic cleaner and I wanted to test that out. I started using just dish soap as the solution, the cleaning solution, and it cleaned this all right. Then I added a little bit of degreaser and it came out looking awesome. There's an old saying, when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and I was putting everything in this cleaner. This thing is awesome, but it's not perfect. I may have doled out this crank arm's finish and removed the black from the chain, but hey, that's weight savings right there. I really got this to clean cassettes, and man, it did not disappoint. Things were going so smoothly up until... So the hub is broken. Right at the axle, it's like snapped in half, and I've actually been riding this on and off since February, and I know that it's been like this since I got it because I was like taking off the back wheel for some reason and the cassette just fell off, and I was like, that was weird, and I didn't really think anything of it. Nothing has felt loose since then. I doubt the previous owner knew about this. I'm not going to be pointing any fingers. I reached out to Crank Brothers to ask if I could buy a new rear axle, and they said that the hub is actually an Industry 9 with their logo just slapped on it. So I have an axle in order, but you know, I still want to make this video, so one last ride should be okay, right? Last up, with this bike being in rough shape, I'm gonna service the suspension. So I went to multiple local bike shops looking for service kits, but I could only find one for the fork, not the rear shock. I guess since the rear shock is so new, all of the service kits are out of stock or on back order or whatever. So I put in another order for more parts for this build. Let me know if you want to see a part 2 for this rebuild. Doing a fork lower service is so simple. Have you tried it before? I usually put it off too long, but then when I do it, I'm like, wow, that was fun. I also decided to use a different bar and stem, something to spruce up the bike a little bit. Let me know if you like them. Dang, dude, this bike turned out so good. I am really impressed with how good this bike cleaned up. And I mean, to an outsider, you wouldn't even be able to tell, but this thing looks brand new. And I mean, I'm gonna ride this thing with the broken axle right now, but I've been riding it like that since February. It'll be all right for, you know, one more ride, but I'm dealing with a problem right now because it's been storming like crazy. So I only have like a 6-hour window to get this ride in and to record for this video, and it's gonna rain a whole bunch more. But I wanna show you all about the Flight Attendant, and then I'll share with you the plans and how I can make money on this bike. A couple years ago, when the electronic suspension was announced, I was like, oh, that's so lame. I mean, just the fork and the shock alone with the sensor, the pedal sensor, cost $2,800 new. So that's too much for me. But now that I got this bike used for $3,000, well, now we're talking. So I've been riding the electronic suspension, and oh boy, it's a freaking game changer. Let me show you. So right now I'm pedaling. The suspension has locked me out, but it's a little bit more complex than that. So during the climb, it locks out. But if it detects any kind of bumps while pedaling, it actually opens up the fork, kind of like a hardtail. I guess the sensors can predict the bumps that are coming up, and it can make like 1,000 decisions or changes a second. I don't know the specifics with it, but I can say that the climbing is easier with the electronic stuff, but that's not even the best part. Let me show you. All right, flow trail, dropping. Oh yeah. Whoa. Yeah, so this suspension will lock out up the lips. Whoa, not right here, it's fully open right here. Yeah, so up the lip, it basically turns your bike into a BMX bike and goes full rigid, so you don't lose some of that support. Whoa. But yeah, basically, oh, case. Basically it makes jumping more fun, let's put it that way, and probably less likely to get bucked by your rear shock. Yeah, somehow it just knows when you're going up a nice round off lip and the suspension stiffens up for the jumps. I just think that's remarkable. And I mean, overall, this is really cool. Like, stiffens up right there. And then I feel like there's like a gyroscope in here. If it knows that your bike is tilted down, it'll open up the suspension. Sometimes when it hits the first bump of a rock garden, it will still be in the stiff setting, but it does open up really quickly. So let's go hit a rock garden and see if it feels kind of weird. All right, chunk trail, let's hit it. Man, I gotta stop showing off for the camera. Yeah, so much fun. All right, here comes the drop. Whoa. Man, this thing is like a high performance
luxury bike. This is awesome, dude. Somehow this sensor thing knows when you're flying through the air and it opens up the suspension for the landing. And I really think this electronic suspension is the future. I mean, think of it. This is the first generation and it's already like amazing. I mean, sure, it's a lot of batteries to manage, but it is awesome and it's probably only gonna get better. The price is obviously pretty high. I could see the price coming down over time as it gets adopted more, but the only thing that would make me go, I'm out, is if they started charging a subscription service to use their flight attendant electronics. But let me tell you my plan to hopefully make money off this bike. So I'm going to, instead of trying to fix it up and trying to sell it for 6,000 bucks, I mean, no one's really buying a used $6,000 bike right now. I don't even think anyone's buying a new $6,000 bike really. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna part this bike out so I could probably sell the suspension front and rear because they have to be together. Probably sell those for, I don't know, $1,000, $1,200. I could probably sell these carbon wheels, you know, after I fix the axle, probably sell those for 700 bucks. I could probably sell the reverb axis dropper for 400 bucks. And then I'll take the frame and I'll put the parts off a low bike, you know, the high-low series is coming up. I'll put those parts on this thing and probably sell it for like $1,800, maybe $2,000. I mean, it's a carbon frame. So realistically, I could make a little bit of money, and the carbon cranks that came on it and the XX1 Axis drivetrain, I stole that for myself, and I'm keeping that because I actually kind of like it. The best thing about this whole situation is that the prices on bikes and parts are coming down. The consumer is winning. So check that used market. There's a lot of good deals out there right now. I'll see you on the next one. Oh, one more thing. If you guys have an idea of how I can reattach that chainstay protector, I was getting a lot of chain slap. Let me know in the comments.